Africa, and welcome to Sports on Africa First Edition. My name is Omelei Imo. With me is Mr. Ngonzi Wataba Solution, a director and founder of Helen Gardens. On today's show, we are going to look into perspective of how a successful journey starts. What's the starting point? With me, he will help you elaborate and explain much further about success. Mr. Wataba, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Brian. I'm very glad to be here.
How are you and how are you coping with the current COVID situation?
Well, I'm blessed. So, whichever day it is, it's a great day because I'm blessed.
Well, Mr. Wataba, success has been a story that each and every individual on earth wants to achieve. So, how can one start the journey to a successful life? Let's start with that.
I think the most important thing when you're talking about success or thinking about success is to ask yourself, what is success? Have you asked yourself that question?
A couple of times.
What answer have you come up with? How do you define success?
I think success, different people describe it differently. But I believe that success is when you achieve freedom, financial freedom, etc.
Well, that's a good way to look at it because financial freedom is one of the different measures of success. Okay. And I think before you start out to achieve success or on your journey to success, the most important thing is for you to have a clear understanding in your mind of what success is. You have to define it for yourself. You understand? Because the person who is going after financial freedom as a measure of success might vary with someone who, in their mind, they will be successful when they have 4 children and 10 grandchildren. So, to answer your question, before you embark on the journey to success, you have to understand within yourself, what is success? How does success look to me? Yes? But that brings me to this. My favorite definition of success is Napoleon Hill's success definition according to his book of Think and Grow Rich. He says, success is the attainment of your chief main aim without taking away from others.
Wow, that is deep.
So let me try and bring it down.
Okay.
If I went ahead to make all the money that I could make, but then it means that I do not get to spend enough time with my children, and because of that they grow up to be spoiled. Or because I'm going out to make as much money as I can, yes, it means that there is a widow who is going to lose her land, or that the environment is going to suffer, so that I can be financially free. That is not success.
So how does an individual start the journey to success? The starting point.
The starting point is normally the hardest, I think. Because everyone wants to be successful, I believe. But not everyone wants to put in the work required to be successful. But how do you start? I'll give an example. This morning, after spending a whole night writing, I set out to go for a 10-kilometer walk.
Okay.
Now, it meant that I was going to walk down to Kasangati Road, all the way to Chira, to Nsasa, back to Bulindo, and come back here. In my mind, I plotted out the map. The goal was to walk 10 kilometers. That map was how I was going to achieve my 10 kilometers. And then I got out of the house and I began to walk. And along the way, there's this app that I'm using. It kept telling me, you've walked for 30 minutes, you've covered this distance.
Okay.
You've walked for 1 hour, you've covered this distance. You've walked for 2 hours, you've covered this distance. And along the way, I think about 4 to 5 kilometers into it, I was tired. My feet were hurting, my legs were dragging, but I had another 5 kilometers to go.
Oh.
So I pressed on.
Okay.
I climbed the hills, I pressed on, I was sweating, I was hurting.
So, Mr. Ngozi, how does this story relate to success?
Follow me.
Okay.
At the end of it, I achieved my what? My 10-kilometer walk plus 1, because I walked for 11 kilometers.
Okay.
How does one start? You have to think about and decide what success is going to be for you. For me this morning, walking for 10 kilometers and achieving that was success. Are you getting?
Okay.
Now, once you understand how success will look for you, this is a point where we have to talk about vision. Without vision, you cannot have success. But vision is about seeing a desired end well before you start.
Okay.
Now, the story I was giving you of the 10 kilometers that I had to walk, in my mind, I drew a map. And this is the way. The 10 kilometers was my goal, was my vision, that I want to walk 10 kilometers this morning. The map was my way, or the route. And then the app telling me you've walked for 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, those are what we call milestones. So how does this relate to success?
Success. Yeah.
How do you start? It starts with knowing where you're going. I think that the greatest failure in life is succeeding at the wrong assignment. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
It's like putting a ladder on a wall. You climb the wall, reach the top, only to discover, I was supposed to be climbing that other wall. But you have succeeded at climbing that wall. That's why I was saying it's very important for us to know what success really means to us. Having understood what success means to you, you have to count the cost. And this is what I was saying, mapping it out. Knowing that for me to achieve that, I have to do this, and I have to do it within this time, and I have to do it like this. You cannot talk about success without goals.
Sure.
Is that clear? So my goal was 10 kilometers in 2 hours, and there are milestones. Now, like I said, the most important thing about the journey to success is the first step. You see, all these things we've been talking about is direction. It's planning. It's sitting down and saying, by the time I am this age, I want to have achieved this or that. And this is how I'm going to do it. You have to sit down and write a plan. You have to think about it. You have to visualize it. What is success going to look like for you? But then, you can visualize all you want, you can plan all you want, but if you do not do, there's no success for you.
Like they say, the hustle is sold separately.
Exactly. So, I think it was Sun Tzu who said that the journey of 1,000 miles starts with
one step.
One step. I cannot overemphasize the importance of beginning. The importance of just saying, you know what, I've been thinking about this for a long time. I want to do this business. I've been thinking about it. I've done my research. I've planned. I've talked to people. You know what? I have to get out of my bed in the morning and go and do it. I'll give an example. For a very long time, I'd been thinking about developing a product that is tangible, like you can touch it. Because my career has basically spanned the service industry. I've worked in advertising and marketing. But I thought to myself, if I stopped going to the office, how can I get paid? And I got an idea. What if I develop a product that can be put on a shelf, that can be kept in a store, and a system can be created where that product is moved even when I'm not there? Okay. And so for a very long time I was thinking about it. But one day, when I was teaching branding and product development, I got the idea, because I had a jerry can of honey at home. And I got the idea that I'm going to use this honey as an example of how to build a product and a brand. So I got tins, I packaged the honey in the tins, I didn't label them or anything, and I took them to class. And I began teaching this class about branding. The interesting thing is we discussed pricing and all that. And at the end of the class, my students bought all the honey. I'd been thinking about this for a very long time. But that day, on the 22nd of November 2018, when I took the step of getting this honey, putting it in a tin, and talking to someone about it, it was just a thought. Yeah? 2 years down the road, we have set up our own hives. I have an apiary in Iganga. We're expanding into Mbale. We're expanding into Bushenyi. We're expanding into Arua. We have honey suppliers, commercial beekeepers from across the country. From Karamoja to Arua, they are now supplying us with honey. But we are not where we want to be, but definitely we are not where we were on the 21st of November. So I'm saying all this to bring you to a point of understanding that if you only think about success and do nothing about it, there is no journey. You're not going anywhere. But again, if you do not know where you're going, any road can lead you there.
Mr. Ngonzi, there are many people who have started whatever dream they have started in life, and they have not been able to achieve it. They have stopped on the way. So what can you tell someone out there who has started a journey and feels like he wants to give up on it, on the journey to success? How does someone understand this journey?
I'll say this, and I want you to listen to me very, very, very carefully. It's okay and it is normal to get tired. Do you understand that? It is okay and it is normal to get tired. But it is never okay to quit. I want that to sink in for a minute. We all get tired. We all wake up in the morning and like, Lord, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to do this. But if you don't do this, who else is going to do it? Sometimes, when you feel stuck, sometimes you're not stuck. You're just parked. I want to say that again. Because between the age of 24 and 30, I had started and crashed about 10 businesses. Between the age of 21 and 31, I'd worked in over 10 companies. Because for me to start something is very easy. But also, to quit something used to be easy. But I realized that quitters never win. And winners never quit. I mean, it's a cliche, right? It's a cliche. But the only reason why it's a cliche is because it's the truth. So I came to a place where I said to myself, I am not going to start something if I don't see myself doing it for 5 to 10 years.
Wow, that's great.
If I don't see myself doing this business 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I'm not going to start. Remember what we talked about? Vision. Goals. So I know that anything that I start, I must finish it. The Bible says that the ending of a thing is better than the beginning thereof. So for that person who is tired, who feels like they can't go on, I'll say take a break. Reorganize yourself.
And continue.
Take a break, go on holiday. You know, sometimes you need to back away. Like, it's not just step back and get a different perspective of things.
Yeah.
But then, if this is important to you, if this is important to your generation, if this is important to your family, whatever you do, don't quit. Because sometimes you quit or you give up when you're just one conversation away from a breakthrough. While you're just like one sale away from hitting it big. I mean, that's when you quit. There is a Luganda proverb which says, "Obwato bufa magoba." I'll translate that for you. It means that most boats that capsize just as they're reaching the shore. So you don't want to be that person who you've put in all this work, you've put in all the energy into the grind, and then you leave it undone. But again, I don't want to be too hard on people who feel like quitting. Because sometimes not everything we start was worth starting in the first place. That is why the quitting has to be properly understood. The fatigue has to be properly understood. Is it mental fatigue or is it vision emptiness?
Maybe let's put it this way. For example, for that young youth who has started something, but the thing stopping him or her is maybe capital. But he envisions where he wants to go, but he has no capital to continue the journey. Maybe what message do you have for such an individual?
What I've learned is that money that you're calling capital, I want to believe that when you say capital, you mean money.
Sure.
I've come to learn that, yes, money is important in starting a business and growing a business. It's very important. But it's not the most important thing. And if money is what is stopping you from growing your business, maybe you shouldn't be in business. I'll tell you that. And why? Why is this? When you start a business, your goal should be to create value. Because the customers are going to pay you for the value that they get from you. So if you focus your energy on making sure that there is a transaction, there is an exchange of value, there will always be someone willing to pay for it. So back to this youth who feels stuck because they do not have capital. Is it the capital to produce the product, or is it the capital to pay rent?
The capital to produce the product.
I'll teach that youth a very simple business principle called leveraging. Leveraging is where you use something that is not yours to produce something for yourself and give value to the person who lent you that thing that you used to produce. So, as an example, as a honey producer and seller, let's say I do not have the money to move my products from
Maybe from here to Ghana.
From here to Ghana.
Yes.
The thing that I have to do is to leverage the value of the honey. Do you understand?
Okay.
To leverage the value of the honey. Either get an advance from the person I'm sending the honey to, yeah, or get a guarantee locally from where I am so the product can go. Because if you understand your value, your job becomes to find the person who is willing to pay the highest for it. So that youth has to assess themselves and say, what value am I bringing to the table? People are always willing to pay for value that they get. So do not be discouraged because you don't have capital. Leverage your value. Leverage your value, and your value should be in your product or your brand. I want to encourage us as young people to build ourselves and to build our equity. By equity, I mean, what are you worth? And in this, I'm talking about the worth of your name, the worth of your contacts and connections, the worth of your business. Now, if you sum up this person, when they walk into a bank, the bank is willing to listen. That if you call somebody and say, hey, Brian, I need 10 million, that person will not ask you for security because your name is worth it because of the value you bring on the table. So as you build your business and the equity in your business, as young people, we have to come to a place where we are building the equity in our own selves, in our names, and what we are worth. I hope that answers your question.
Now, considering this success story that you've told us and putting it in African perspective, you know, Africa success story has not been told yet. So what journey can Africa undertake to achieve a successful story of her own?
Africa, listen to me, and listen to me very, very carefully. Africa has the youngest population in the world.
Okay.
By 2050, the population of young Africans under the age of 30 is projected to be in the excess of 1.5 billion people. For Africa to succeed, two things have to happen. One, we have to stop eating our seed.
Eating our seed. So how can you explain this to someone, maybe to the young African outside there? Expound on the eating the seed maybe.
You see, we were talking earlier, and this is what I was saying. You see, Africa is that place in the world where you're going to walk along the road and there'll be a mango tree that will just throw fruit at your feet. Only in Africa. We have the best weather. We have the best soils. We have the youngest population, people who are strong and able. When I say Africa should stop eating its seed, it means that the young people have got to come to a place where they stop living for now. Our governments have got to come to a place where they stop living in the moment. I asked you a question earlier. How many mangoes are on one tree?
Several.
A couple.
Yeah.
But do you know how many trees are in one mango? Which is more? Are there more trees in a mango, or are there more mangoes on a tree? What's your answer?
I believe when you have the seed and you plant it, more mangoes will come out.
Exactly. There are more mangoes in the seed. If you eat the seed, you lose the tree. You lose the future harvest. So what is the seed? It's our time. We've got to come to a place where we stop wasting time. We've got to come to a place where we stop wasting dime. We've got to come to a place where we stop wasting our mind. Because the reason that Africa has been kept where it is because for so long we have been told that Africa is poor, that we are lacking this, we are lacking that, we are lacking this. And I just want to break that and tell you Africa is not poor. If Africa was poor, no one would be running here to steal from it, because no one steals from a poor man.
Oh, yes, yes.
Except maybe the African. Except maybe the African leaders are the ones who have the audacity and the shamelessness to steal from the poor man. It's only in Africa. So the success story of Africa is going to change when we first and foremost understand that we have something of value in our hands. And then two, determined to grow. We have to be a generation that focuses on growth. Everything has to be about growth and not immediate gratification. If I give you 100,000 Ugandan shillings, you have to put yourself in a mindset of how do I grow this, not how do I spend this. That's what's going to change Africa. Because it's only in Africa where with 100,000 shillings you can start a business. These stories have been told. Lady starts with 100,000 shillings, becomes a multimillionaire. Only in Africa. This is the place where you have the opportunity to do things like that. And the other thing that we have to invest in is leadership. If Africa does not sort out the leadership question, Africa will always remain behind. You see, it's not a wealth problem. It's not a resource challenge. It's not a people challenge. Africa's problem is a leadership question.
So how do we solve this?
I believe that it's with you and I as young people asking the right questions and not being afraid to ask the people that are eating our seed and saying, why are you eating our seed? We have to be bold enough to take our leaders on, to provide accountability for the seed. Because I want you to understand this. If the child sees the father eating the food that was supposed to be theirs for supper and does not raise their voice, they will sleep hungry in silence. How much longer do you think we should be willing to go hungry as Africa because we are not bold enough to ask the right questions of our leadership? Leadership will change when we begin to ask questions. So Africa has got to, number one, stop eating its seed. Two, develop a growth mentality. We have to look at ways of growing the value of the things that we have, so that no one is going to come here and take things for cheap. For example, over 200 years ago, slave trade was abolished. But I want to tell you today that every single day in Uganda, just out of Uganda, there are over 200 young girls who are exported to Asia to work as maids for a miserly $300 and the worst of living conditions you can imagine. What we are saying is that the lives of these young girls is worthless because it's just $300 that they cannot even use there and send enough back here. So we have to come to a place where we determine the value of our resources, the resources in the ground, the resources of our environment, the resources of our people, and the resources of our time.
Maybe just in conclusion, to that young African out there, maybe what last word can you have to a young viewer watching us?
My brother, my sister, out your hands and touch your head and touch your heart. Now listen to me. The power for you to move forward is in your head. But it has to be driven by passion to get to your hands and make you productive. Because if you do not invest in growing your value, no one is going to do that for you. If anything, people are going to want to rip you off. But don't be that person who rips yourself off by eating your seed, wasting your time, and thinking that you're not enough.
Well, you've heard it from Wataba himself, a man who believes that Africa has a future, and you, our viewers, should not eat your seed, other than less plant it. It has been Sport on Africa, brought with you by Omelei Imo. Make sure you like and subscribe our YouTube channel, and follow us on Facebook at Sport on Africa, on Twitter at Sport on Africa. Make sure you tune in on the next show.